Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Fiscal Physical Podcast. I am Aaron. This is my old pal, Ryan Nelson, founder of Alchemy Wealth Management. Ryan, you've been nominated a few times for the best, is it wealth management firm in the Reno, Tahoe area? Is that what the actual title is?
There's a few different awards, but yeah, typically under a wealth management firm, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just saw, I mean, we're pre-recording certain things, so it's hard to say, but I mean, you I believe you won last year one of the awards, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah.
Yep. Alchemy got gold last year.
Excellent. So yeah, hopefully by the time this one comes out, maybe you have gold again. It's hard to say, but just goes to show, a gentle plug here for the for Alchemy Wealth Management. Everything that you've built here, man, it's pretty impressive overall. So
thank you.
And once again, if this is pre-recorded, the company goes under in the next. By the time this airs, ignore that. We'll cut that out later. But no, big props to you, man. So
thank you.
On that note, you want to talk about marriage and divorce?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So we've mentioned several times here, Ryan, that we are, we're not trying to give financial advice, and God knows we're not trying to give relationship advice on this podcast either. So,
absolutely.
This is a topic though that it's can be awkward to broach. It's one of those things people don't talk about: relationships, money, politics, these certain things. People get awkward with them. They kind of clam up, whatever it is. But I think it's important. So we're going to talk about financial implications of marriage, divorce, and kind of everything that goes into that for sure. So, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it from you're one of the most logical individuals that I know. So, just to kind of hear how you view these things, what recommendations you give with your, as you've seen over these over the years specifically. So let's go ahead and turn it over to you. And what do you got for us today? Very curious.
Yeah, let's do it. So marriage. Let's talk about marriage sort of as a financial partnership, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So first, I think it's sort of important to realize that marriage is a legal contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is obviously a romantic relationship. But it does merge finances, liabilities, financial goals. And again, circling back, it is a legal contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think oftentimes, if we think about, I think if most of us just kind of thought about marriage just randomly, we would think of it like the romantic side of it,
sure,
and not so much like the legal contract side
mm-hmm.
of it, right? I think there's a lot of impacts of that legal side, though, that are important from a financial consideration that should be taken into account. And I think sometimes aren't quite frankly taken into account. And so let's talk about some of those. But so there's shared responsibilities. So, as you're married, what's one debt is another person's debt, right? Your spending habits affect one another.
Mm-hmm.
Your investment approaches can affect one another. And so I'd say that communication is key. So that you want to have those proactive money conversations around income and assets, spending styles. Oftentimes, there's a spender and there's a saver, right?
Sure.
And, getting those conversations, being as proactive and open about those conversations is best. Financial goals, right? If one person's goal is to buy the biggest house in the city and the biggest boat on the block,
mm-hmm.
And the other person's goal is to retire at age 45, and those two goals aren't aligned with each other, right? One wants to spend the money, one wants to save it and retire early. So it's important to sort of talk and discuss those financial goals. Retirement expectations kind of come along with that. And so just that transparency sort of early and often is probably best. So I mentioned or alluded, well, I didn't allude to it. I just straight up said that marriage is a legal contract, right?
So romantic when you put it like that.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sure my fiance will love this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But so there's some legal tools out there that are important to consider when getting married.
Mm-hmm.
So like a prenuptial agreement, for example. So that's an agreement that you enter into before being married. So prenuptial agreement that helps clarify basically your guys' relationship with the assets and business interests and debts, and if anything was to happen if you guys did separate. And so that's another one of those things that you mentioned early on. They can be kind of weird to talk about, or like feel taboo to talk about. And so this would be one of those tools that probably every couple should have a discussion about. What they may decide not to get a prenuptial agreement. They may decide to get a prenuptial agreement. Either way, that conversation probably should be had. And I bet you most couples just don't even have it because neither is comfortable broaching the subject. So again, an important topic to have. And one of the examples I like to always give is like, obviously you're not going into a marriage expecting to get divorced.
Sure. Right.
The reality is like, nobody could ever say with certainty, 100% certainty that they're not going to get divorced.
Absolutely.
You could say with 100% certainty going into the marriage, you don't plan to get divorced.
There you go. Yep. Yeah. That's valid.
Yeah. But you couldn't ever say that with 100% certainty that you're not going to get divorced. I mean, there's two parties in the relationship. You're only one of the two parties, right? And so what's important is to kind of start to understand if anything were to happen in that relationship, then there is a process that's going to take place, right? If you go through a divorce, there's going to be a process that takes place to split your assets and do all that stuff, right? Basically, if you haven't put in your own process, you're just going to use the state's default process. So there is a process that's going to take place if you happen to get a divorce. So a prenuptial agreement lets you sort of tailor that process to yourselves while you're still passionate, while you still like each other, while you're still good, right?
In sound mind.
While you're both acting rationally, right?
Yeah.
So you can just come up with your own process. And what that means now, if heaven forbid a divorce ever did happen, there's probably a lot less fighting, right? Instead of fighting over who gets the house, it's like, we've already decided who gets the house. We knew it going into the relationship. We knew if we got a divorce, this is who gets the house. Like, it's just an already agreed upon signed document, right? And so it can make those separations go far smoother and align them more with each of your values. So prenuptial agreements, again, are a legal agreement you can enter in before being married. There's also estate planning. So things like after you get married, you should probably update your beneficiaries, your wills, your powers of attorney, your trusts, right? So there's all these legal estate planning documents that should be reviewed or updated as well, and depending on, again, your guys' financial situation. And then the titling of accounts. So like I could have an account titled in the name of Ryan. I could also have a joint account. I could have an account in the name of Ryan and Aaron, right?
Sure.
And so you would just, as you enter into a relationship with somebody, you would want to review how each of your accounts is titled and have them titled appropriately. And for all this stuff, there's no right or wrong. It's not that somebody should have a prenuptial agreement or should not have a prenuptial agreement. It's not that somebody should have a will or should not have a will, or should have a trust or should not have a trust, or should title a certain way or should not have a title in a certain way. As with everything in life, there's just pros and cons to each of them.
Absolutely.
And so it's just important to have those discussions, have those conversations, figure out kind of what aligns with your value system, and then be making an educated decision, as opposed to just what I think a lot of people do is just not make a decision. They're scared to bring up the conversation with their partner, so they just don't make a decision, and then they just kind of end up finding themselves in some like situation as opposed to strategically planning to find themselves in the best situation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, man. It hits it right on the head. Is if you're going to be entering into this legal contract and this one of the biggest decisions that you'll make in your life, like, you probably want to be relatively like up to speed on what the partner thinks of these things too. Like, what do you think? What are your habits? What do you want to do? What are your goals, like, if you will, and determining this and having those conversations, while it's not the sexiest thing to do by any means, but it is very important to have those conversations, because once you're locked into this marriage, if you will, at least the short term, whatever you want to call it, you are one, if you will. Assets can be just when you're like, okay, well, I didn't know that you wanted to do that. Like, that's what, like now we're in this situation that we could be detrimental to what my goals were, and we don't align on these certain things. And so to be able to take care of that up front, or at least make sure everybody's on the same page throughout, and revisit that throughout your relationship too, I think is very important for sure. So
couldn't agree more. So then let's talk about a little bit about that divorce and the cost of the separation. So there is a financial impact of divorce, right? There's legal fees, there's dividing the assets, there's splitting retirement accounts, there's alimony potentially, there's maybe some tax implications depending on what has to be done. So there are definitely some financial impacts. There's sort of, I guess, a joke, but a lot of people will say like the most expensive mistake you can make is like having a failed marriage. And like if you put yourself in the shoes of
Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, hey, we didn't even write that one down.
No, yeah. How much money did it?
I can't remember what the...
It was like 50 billion?
That's the number I was thinking of, too. I thought it was definitely tens of billions of dollars. Yeah, it's a big number.
Yeah.
A number I had no idea. I was like, I can't even wrap my head around that.
So again, it's kind of it's a bit of a joke, but I mean, there's probably not many things that could lower Jeff Bezos' net worth by $50 billion in one moment, right?
Yeah.
and that's one of them.
Yeah.
So, just be aware. And then, some other like common oversights would be like just forgetting to update estate plans and beneficiaries, not understanding how retirement accounts would get divided, underestimating the emotional toll on financial like decision making. What I see a lot is I'll talk to one member of so maybe maybe there was a couple who was working with a different financial advisor. The couple splits, and let's just say the husband had a good relationship with the financial advisor. So now they split. So now the wife's like, well, I don't want to use that financial advisor. He's like best buddies with my now ex-husband. Yeah. I'm gonna go find another advisor. So let's say they come and find me, and I'm talking to him, talking to the wife. Now, what I see happen all the time is like let's say now I'm talking to a wife. So this is the wife's side of the story. She'll be like, I just like gave him whatever because it was basically so like emotionally taxing and draining. It was taking forever. And so like, I should have asked for more. I should have taken more. I didn't take half, whatever. I just wanted out. Right. Yeah. And I've seen that from the husband's side. I've seen that from the wife's side. I've seen it from all sides. But the like underestimating that emotional toll, like it's brutal. Yep. You don't like it's a very hard decision to make. And then when you're having to go to court multiple times, it just drags everything out and it's very emotional. And at times people can then make non-rational decisions just to end things and say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. You keep the house. Yep. Right. And now all of a sudden they look back at it 3 years later and they say, I don't know how I'm ever going to retire. Like I just gave them the house and I just gave them the retirement accounts and now I have nothing. Right. And so it's just important things to, again, be considering. Whereas the more you have these conversations and the more things you put in place on the front end, the easier all this stuff becomes on the back end.
Yep. No, that's super well said, man. Super well said. Yeah.
So like, if you're hearing all this and you're like, okay, cool, this all makes sense. So like how would, as a couple, like how would me and my spouse protect ourselves, right? So I'd say like before marriage, just fully disclose your finances with your partner. You should know how much the other person's earning. You should know what's in their accounts, how much money they have. Also disclose your goals, your values. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to spend? Discuss things like a prenup, see if it's applicable and if it makes any sense for you guys and where you guys are at. Another common thing I hear all the time is like, when we got married, we both had nothing. It's like, okay, I get why then having that discussion, like if you had the prenup discussion, you're both like, we both have nothing, like maybe we're not going to get a prenup. Again, think about the process. Just because you have nothing today doesn't mean you'll have nothing for the rest of your life, right? And so this isn't like a prenup. You're not putting the prenup in place for today. You're putting it in place for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future. So your current status actually has maybe a lot less impact than you think, right? So it'd really be thinking like, okay, is this something we would want to put into place? So if anything happens to us 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, we have a defined process that will take place. Again, it will make anything that were to happen easier. So again, not that everybody needs one, but everybody should have that conversation. So that'd be before marriage. So again, kind of just fully disclosing all your finances, your goals, discussing things like prenups, all of that fun stuff. During marriage, right? Like having regular check-ins and like just being kind of keeping those same practices going of being like transparent and like talking about money is important. Having discussions around joint accounts versus separate accounts. This is the same thing. I don't think it's best to have joint accounts. I don't think it's best to have separate accounts. Right. some couples, like based on their personalities and their values, it just makes way more sense for them to have individuals accounts. Some different couples, based on their values and the way they interact with money, it makes sense for them to have a joint account.
Yeah.
And neither's right, neither's wrong, right? Yeah. Just have the conversation and figure it out strategically.
Yes, absolutely. And also these like having, you can do these in a way that it's not like it should be like pulling teeth to have these conversations either. Sure. Like you can do it in a fun way. Yeah. You can be like, okay, cool. Like we're going to go out to dinner tonight and we're going to, we're going to talk about our finances. But like you can revolve it. Hey, cool. We're going to do like my wife and I, we do like a little drinking game and we'll like talk about our finances and we'll
take one shot for every $1.
Yeah.
You both take one shot.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Now I'm going to bed kind of thing. But you can do it in a way that you take off that stigma of like, oh, this is going to be so boring and annoying and stuff like that too. If you continuously and regularly have those conversations, they just become normal.
Yeah, right.
And then it's so much easier to when something big comes up, you're like, oh, we're already used to having these conversations. Now we can just continue and now we adapt and such too. So big piece of it.
Like you said, it's easy to normalize this stuff. I think, a good example of that, I think I've said it on the podcast before, though, I'll oftentimes ask people like, oh, how much money do you make or something like that? Yeah. And like my fiance or somebody will be like, oh, you can't ask that. I'm like, I don't know. I ask it all day, every day to everybody I meet. Like it's become destigmatized to me, like it doesn't feel awkward to ask how much money somebody makes. But I understand how it's awkward for somebody else, right? And so it just proves that same point. Like if it's your first time ever asking how much money somebody made, it's going to be an awkward kind of ask. If you've asked it 1,000 times over the last couple of years, like it's pretty easy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then lastly, right, knock on wood, hopefully this never happens for any of our listeners, but if divorce does become a reality, right? So all of this stuff is like to proactively plan for the possibility of divorce, but the reality is, I think more couples who like are open about this stuff and plan for it, they're actually the couples that are least likely to get divorced.
Yes.
Right? The ones who talk about their finances on the front end aren't going to have the financial disputes that cause the divorce, right? Like the ones who get the prenup, they've gone so far down this rabbit hole of talking so much about this that they're the least likely to have any sort of like financial disruption, right? So again, all of this was like hypothetically like some of the conversations can feel weird and maybe feel cold and like they're not like sexy as you mentioned earlier, right? But like in reality, like it's probably the healthiest thing for your relationship, right?
Absolutely.
But again, knock on wood, hopefully this doesn't happen for any of our listeners, but if a divorce does become a reality, you're going to want to assemble like a team of professionals, right? So you want your attorneys, your financial advisors, potentially like marriage therapists, right? Whatever needs to whatever professionals you need to make that go as smoothly as possible. But it's probably not usually best to go it alone. And therefore, if you start thinking like how expensive that could be, maybe some of the reasons why you might want to put some things in place on the front end. And then as you're doing all this, just focus on sort of the long-term clarity. Yeah.
No, I think that's perfectly wrapped up there too. And I one little play. It's funny. My wife and I it tends to be like when we'll be separate for a while or whatever. I'm like, hey, I go on a weekend trip with the boys, or she goes up to visit her mom or something like that. And I always like to revisit the conversation. I'm like, okay, cool. What happens if something, like if I pass away while I'm on this trip or something like that? Morbid conversation.
Sure.
It's like, oh, why are we talking? I'm like, then we'll talk. I'm like, hey, what's the first thing that you do if you find out like that I have died or something like that? And she's like, I call Ryan. And I was like, perfect.
Is that it?
That's what I always tell her. I was like, financially speaking, like I handle most of the finances.
Yeah.
She's okay with, she has a working knowledge of it, but I'm like, hey, like you call Ryan and he will at least be able to direct you in the right way and like how these things go. And I think about it the same way with like, we haven't actually talked about the divorce piece of it, but I think my answer would be the same, like with that too. Like I am like, hey, like talk to our financial advisor as far as that goes, because and those other, the attorneys, other teams and such too. But making sure that you have somebody in your corner, like to that knows what's going on, and it can be a non-partial person as well too. I think that's always good too. But
absolutely,
I think it's a big plug to be like, hey, like make sure that we know what we're doing, and like. Death is one of those things that's a stigma people don't want to talk about, but it's a part of life. As is marriage and divorce as well too. So something to keep in mind. There's something to marinate on for you listeners out there, without a doubt. So,
absolutely.
Cool. Anything else to say on that one, Ryan? Before we pause here?
No, I think that's good.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. And we'll be right back on the other side of this.
And now, to put the personal in personal finance.
Welcome back, everybody. This side of the Fiscal Physical podcast. I am still Aaron, and I am still joined by Mr. Ryan Nelson. And today, Ryan, we're going to get down to one of the five senses here. What is something? Oh, question for you here. Let me preface that. But what is your favorite smell?
Yeah, it's a very odd question.
It is. There. Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah.
I'm not sure where you're coming up with these things.
Hard to say.
I was like, I don't know. My nose isn't very good. I don't have a lot of. I can't tell the difference between many smells. I feel like
hilarious.
But I think it took me quite a bit of thinking. But I think like rain is always a cool smell. Like when it's about to rain or is raining. That's one of the smells I have. And then fresh grass, I think it's got that special little something to it as well. So yeah, I think rain and fresh grass. What about you?
Yeah, no, it's funny when I was writing this question down, I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun one because I have heard you're like, I don't have the most sensitive palate, just in general, and a lot of times those like senses are like go together. So same with me too, but like there's certain ones, and I honestly at this point we're 80 plus episodes in, I'm just like, what would be something cool that I don't know about Ryan? Like
sure.
So for myself though, it's funny, there's a couple of ones that stand out to me. One, I love the smell of fresh baked sourdough bread. Comes out of the oven. Like you walk in, like my wife got into a baking phase a while ago. I gained like 30 pounds and she like was making bread all the time, and I was like, oh wow, this is great. Like I'd come out after work and I'm like, oh yeah, like this smells phenomenal. But my favorite smell, super weird, don't judge me too much. I love the smell of fresh tires. Like, like I go into a tire store, like a Les Schwab or something like that. I can't get enough of that smell of that rubber.
Interesting.
I don't know why it is. It's like it is addicting to me. Like
maybe that can be your retirement job. As you retire, you can retire into a front desk at a tire store.
Yeah, something like that where I could just consistently just smell that, and I'd be very happy at work. But like, it's one of those things. Ever since I was a little kid, too, my dad talks about like when I was 4 or 5. I don't really remember this, but us going to Les Schwab and me sniffing the tires.
That's fun.
And I was like, well, that's probably a red flag, right?
Yeah,
like,
like
kind of
you
thing.
Just put me down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess I'm not huffing gasoline or anything like that, but also not a bad smell. But I would say that like fresh rubber tires, whatever it is, like is just I go to Walmart and I'm like walking by and there's like just the bike aisle in itself. Like, and I'm like, oh, I was gotta walk down this kind of thing. So kind of weird, but it's one of those things that just gets my olfactory senses rolling for
That's
sure.
Hilarious.
So
definitely a unique one. That's not where I thought you'd be going with that.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, this is gonna really
funny.
Throw the listeners for the loop. Without a doubt. So awesome, Ryan. Well, appreciate all this, man. Appreciate you being a good sport with this, and hope everybody learned some things this episode. I know this was a good one for sure. So let us know if there's anything you guys want to hear as well. We really want to cover some topics that our listeners are at this point. We're up to hundreds of listeners, so that's cool. Like someone out there's got to have a topic that they want us to cover. We're more than willing. Email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. Send us a text. Send us whatever to get us to us. We're happy to do it. And Ryan, I'll let you play us out here, my man.
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. And consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.